Hey everyone, I'm Taylor, and I have been reflecting a lot of my life over the past 4 years at Purdue. And the biggest thing that I have seen in my life with Christ is Him just like deconstructing this pride in me just consistently. When I started at college, I kind of believed that Jesus died and was resurrected and raised to heaven. That only started for me my senior year of high school, so it wasn't like super foundational for my life. It's like I would go to Campus House on Sundays, I'd raise my hands during worship with this hope that people would look at me and they would think, wow, she's a cool Christian girl, I want to get to know her. And then all the other times of my life, what I was doing was like partaking in partying, sex, drugs, gossip, with the hope that people in those situations would look at me and think like, wow, she's super cool and fun, like I really want to get to know her. And I realized in about October of my sophomore year that I needed to make a change in my life. It's like I woke up from this like long day of drinking and I fell on my knees and I was like, Lord, I'm done. And I bought a Bible, I started reading it, and from October to about March, I was still in this war of like, do I live in the world? Do I continue partying? Do I continue looking for this approval of man? Or do I live with Christ? Like, what does that look like? And, I realized that through that time, I was scared because I thought that a life with Christ was going to be so boring. I was going to sit on my couch all the time, like by myself. I wasn't going to go anywhere. I wasn't going to do anything. But in March, when I did submit my life to Him, like from that moment until now, I realized how adventurous and fun and joyous and love driven and spontaneous a life with Christ is. Like I've just experienced that so incredibly much, from everything from like living with an indigenous tribe in Costa Rica for 3.5 months to just like the seemingly menial conversations that I've had with my friends on my couch at Purdue. Like all of those were truly just so much more fun and like love filled and like filled with so much more laughter than anything was before my life with Christ. And then in March of my junior year, actually, like the Lord really showed me that like what He was doing in my life was deconstructing me of that pride, deconstructing me of this desire for people to look at me and to like receive their approval, because when I first gave my life to Christ, it was like I had so much pride filled in me. It was hard because my friends were going out, they were hanging out and doing all this stuff, when I felt the Lord telling me to stay back. And like I was literally by myself in a house where I was used to 30 other people being around me at all times. Some of my closest friends cut me out of their life because I committed my life to Christ. Just judgments telling me that I'm wrong and stupid for doing this, but through all of that, like the Lord was totally there. And in March of my junior year, I realized that I had been living with so much pride in my thoughts. I was reading in Acts 8 and it talks about Simon the sorcerer, and he was seeking the Lord for his power so that people would look at him, and that people would be filled with awe and wonder of like who Simon was. And I realized that like I was Simon the sorcerer. I was seeking the Lord every single day and spending time with Him every single day. And the reason I was doing that was because it was like transactional. Like I wanted Him, I wanted His Holy Spirit, so I would go out and perform these signs and wonders and like be this seemingly humble person and loving person so that people would look at me and think like, wow, Taylor's so cool, I want to be her friend. And so it was like I wanted people to meet Taylor, not Christ. And it was like in that moment that I realized that I was having all these thoughts of like, I'm better than other people, like all those people who have judged me, and like all the times that I'm alone, like at least I'm getting to heaven, like at least I'm right, and like all these things. And like from that moment, what I realized is that the Lord has really softened my heart to want to be humble. Like He has put that inside of me. Like I did nothing to like want to be humble. Yeah, and like I just remember even last year sitting at Campus House on Senior Sunday and thinking like, wow, I hope that next year I get to do that, so that way people can hear all the things that I have to say. And I just remember the Lord being like, what about all the things that I have to say? And I realized like that the Lord is so much greater than myself, which kind of, I feel ridiculous even saying that, but like that's the reality that I was living in, that like I was even greater than the Lord. Like I was idolizing myself And one of the biggest passages that have actually that's actually like really shaped my life with Christ has been Revelation 1, verses 12 through 18, which says, "Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and on turning I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the lampstands, one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white, like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire, his feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars. From his mouth came a sharp, 2-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in full strength. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. But he laid his right hand on me, saying, 'Fear not, I am the first and the last and the living one. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades.'" And just, like, sorry, it just makes me speechless. It makes me emotional, clearly, but just the thought of that Jesus' beloved disciple, one who walked with him and who knew him so intimately, and like they just loved each other so much, fell at Jesus' feet when he was met with this new revelation of who Jesus is and like all of his might and power and authority. And like, I just want to live in that reality. I want to live in the reality of like that this is who Jesus is. That this is the God that I serve, the God that I love, the God that I commune with. And I have found that when I live in that reality, that like there is no fear, there is no anxiety, there is no pride. And it's like in those times, like those are times when I truly look at other people as greater than myself. Like Jesus truly looked at other people as greater than himself. Like everyone. And that blows my mind. I hope and pray that one day, like, I can live in that reality all the time. And that the church just lives in the reality of this Jesus and all of his might and power. Yeah. Love you guys.